detailed. In the lab, you can give me any one function. Okay. So here, to identify these structures, you know that in the brain, you have the pineal gland, right? Okay, let me use that one. So in the brain, you have this gland here. And what is this gland here? Pineal gland. And it makes a hormone melatonin. You will learn in the lecture. So don't worry too much about the functions today, because we're going to study in the lecture, and you will know. Pineal gland, right? What is this thing here? Pituitary gland. We studied that there are different parts, anterior and posterior pituitary. And this connection here, what do you call that connection here? Infundibulum. Right? And it connects to what part of the brain? Hypothalamus. Right? Okay. Then you have this gland here, thyroid gland. It makes 3 hormones, you know, T3, T4, right? There's a third one also called calcitonin that you did in anatomy. Remember calcitonin stimulus osteoblast? Okay, we'll do that. And behind this, which glands are there? Parathyroid glands on the back side. So if you open this, before I proceed, very quick review. All of you speak out. Which organ?
Lungs.
Which organ?
Heart.
Which organ? Liver, stomach, large intestine, small intestine, penis, testes. I'm saying these things testes because it may sound funny, but we have students from all over the world. And everybody is not familiar with these words in their language, right? It has happened with me in many classes. Do you understand the word penis? What's that? Do you understand testes? No. Do you understand scrotum? Scrotal sacs? No. Why? Because in their language, whatever the language is, right? They never heard that word. So English is not their first language. So for me, it is normal if you don't know those names. Okay. So here, if you remove the lung, because I'm removing these things, you will have to put it back. Okay. Every time you use the lab, every time you have to put all the materials back, all the bottles back in, all the tables in these chairs should be pushed back in, everything on the table should be nicely arranged before you leave. So this heart, right? Okay. And the liver, and with the liver goes the gallbladder, stomach. Now, when I remove the stomach, here you go, is the pancreas. See this pancreas? Big one. On the side, left side, the spleen. And the intestine, the large intestine, part of it, small intestine. And this thing here, large intestine, right? Going up, across, down, like this. When you remove this, kidneys, right? Okay, see the kidneys? On top of kidneys, what do you see? Adrenal glands. Because they're above, they used to be called, sometimes some books, classical books still have it, suprarenal glands. Supra superior, right? So you call them, mostly they call adrenal nowadays, But when I was a student, they also used to be called suprarenal glands. Okay. And okay, so you know these names, right? Now, let me grab this thing here. Can you see from this? Okay, here.
It's upside down. It's upside down.
Where's that?
It's upside down.
It's upside down?
Yeah.
You like this way better?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but it may so happen that when the patient is on the table, you will not be always on this side of the table. You will be on the other side of the table. You follow my point? And then you still have to appreciate, right? What all so even if it is like this, the patient is like this, you still have to be able to appreciate. Okay. Having said that, you have here the pituitary gland, right? And this is the detail of pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, how many parts?
Two.
Anterior and
Posterior.
how do you know which one is anterior or posterior? Anterior makes how many hormones?
7.
Posterior makes how many?
2. 2.
You said
Zero.
Yeah.
You're right.
0.
Yeah. Stores tissue.
It
Oh, it
stores two
stores
but
it.
does not produce two, right?
That's right. That's right.
So you have this part which is making 7 hormones. It looks filled up with all the cells. Many different types of cells, right? So if you think that this part, if you see that this part is totally filled up with cells, it is anterior, pituitary. The other part which may look empty or fibrous is what? Posterior. Posterior pituitary stores oxytocin and ADH, which it will release whenever the body needs. Anterior pituitary is making 7 hormones that we did today, right? So you should know their functions. Okay. And of course, what is this here? Infundibulum. And this thing here is the heart. This thing is the thyroid. This is the detail of the thyroid. In the thyroid is one gland but 2 parts, right lobe and left lobe. These are connected. See the connection? They are not separate, right? That connection is isthmus. Again, you will know the name. You can see the book. I will give the handout. Isthmus. Okay. And this thyroid is making T3 and T4 and calcitonin, those hormones. On the back side of this, on the back side, posterior side, you don't see it here, front view. You see this back view? You see this tiny gland here? Which one? Parathyroid. It makes parathyroid hormone, PTH, to regulate blood calcium levels. It will increase blood calcium. Okay. This one here, again, don't worry about names because I didn't give you these names in the lecture so far. So you may not know these names, that's okay. But I'm giving you these names because you hear it and then it will register some part of it, right, in your brain. Okay. So the hormone from here is called atrial natriuretic peptide. And what that does is it will cause sodium ions to go out with the urine. Where sodium goes, what goes? Where sodium goes, water goes. Water follows sodium. So sodium goes out, water goes out. If water goes out, blood volume becomes less. Blood volume becomes less, what happens to blood pressure? If blood volume is less? Lower. Makes sense, right? Okay. So it will make atrial natriuretic peptide more if what? If what about blood pressure? If blood pressure is high. Is high, right? It's going to make more ANP to get more sodium out, more water out. You understand? Okay. And then you have these kidneys, right? Kidneys make two hormones. Erythropoietin, that will increase your production of red blood cells. Erythro-red. Again, one more time, don't worry too much about these names today, because I'm going to repeat it in the lecture. Alright? Erythropoietin and calcitriol for vitamin D. Okay? So even if these heart, these kidneys are not endocrine glands, you may ask, why are we studying today? Why? Why are you studying the heart and referring to the kidneys today?
Because they still produce hormones.
Because they still produce hormones. Okay? On top of the kidney, what is this thing here? Adrenal gland. In the adrenal gland, do you still remember the name of this inner part? Medulla. It makes epinephrine and norepinephrine, what are called as short-term emergency hormones. This outer part here is the adrenal cortex, and this makes what kind of hormones? Steroid hormones. What are those hormones? Not today. Next. Okay. This cortex has three different parts, three different zones. Each zone makes a different kind of steroid hormone. So not today, next time. All right. And this thing here is what?
Or that's the pancreas.
Pancreas. I requested her today to give you a short, brief information session on pancreas. So one day when we are doing digestive system, so at that time, she will tell you more than what I can tell you. Okay? Pancreas. And this pancreas is a mixed gland. And this mixed gland is making hormones like insulin and glucagon. This is also making pancreatic juice. And that pancreatic juice goes into the intestines to help with digestion. Okay? And this thing here is one of the islet of Langerhans, islet, pancreatic islet. And this island here is called island of Langerhans. This island is the one that makes hormones. Outside this, these cells here, see dark cells here? These are the acinar cells. These acinar cells make pancreatic juice, exocrine. This one here, you don't have to identify different cell types here, whether A, B, D, different types of cells. Just call it islet of Langerhans. And the testes, and you know testes has two functions. What are those? Sorry, what do you think?
Say,
It has two functions. What are those?
releases hormones.
Produce semen.
Produce?
Semen.
I'm saying two functions.
Oh, two functions.
What are those two functions?
Testosterone
Okay?
and produce semen.
Okay, there you go, right? Two functions. Testes' main function is to produce sperm, right? And in addition, it also makes male sex hormone. Similarly, female, the ovary has two functions. And what are those? Not ovulation, just say
Produce.
simply to produce eggs, right?
It's produce.
To produce eggs, and what else?
Just estrogen.
Produce female sex hormones, estrogen and you should make a mental note that all these three, even if you say male female hormones, actually all three are in the male, all three in the female also. It is just the relative quantities, and there is very little difference in the structure. If you look at the chemical structure, very little difference. Actually, testosterone is made from estrogen just by one change. So these are there in the both male and female, all three. Okay. This thing here is missing. Something here. Do you remember what is missing here? I showed you in the lecture. Something, thymus. Remember thymus gland? Thymus gland makes a hormone thymosin. and that thymosin will help your immune system. That thymosin will help T cells maturation. That's why those are called T cells. T for thymus, right? Thymosin, T cell maturation. This gland is very special because this gland with age it becomes smaller. So many scientists, most in 1950s and 60s, they thought that no other organ of the body is becoming smaller like this, like the way it does. So this gland or this organ is the reason for aging. This causes aging. People are looking for aging, right? Causes of it. But then they found out that even if this contributes to that, because we become small, then T cells will become less, right? Less mature, so that is going to affect your immunity. But there are other reasons for aging. Like for example, DNA, you said DNA? Have you said telomeres and all? Telomerase and all? Okay. Anyway. So, what else here? Did I forget to mention anything? Okay.